Today we have a special guest here to explain his model and theory of the atom, Mr. Niels Bohr.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. So would you mind introducing yourself to the viewers?
Not at all. I'm Niels Bohr, creator of the Bohr model and one of the many atom theories discussed in Science Today.
Alright. Is there anything you'd like to share about yourself before we get started?
Oh, fun fact, I got my Nobel Prize around the same time as Albert Einstein did.
Oh really?
Yeah, I was also known to cause explosions during the experiments in the lab of my university, and obviously got reprimanded for it.
On purpose or accidentally?
Of course, accidentally. Even when I promised myself I wouldn't cause a catastrophe, I just tend to do it anyways.
Quite the adventurous soul.
Anything for science.
Are you ready to get started?
Well, I've been ready.
Could you explain what ideas you were working off of that assisted you in coming up with your theory?
My hypotheses were that only specific special orbits, which are called discrete orbits of electrons, are allowed inside the atom, and while revolving in these discrete orbits, the electrons on them do not radiate energy.
And this proves?
This was my attempt to show and prove why atoms are so stable, which, as of now, is mostly true.
You elaborate your visual model.
Certainly. My model shows the nucleus at the center of an atom, with the electrons revolving around it, comparable to the solar system. With the planets revolving around the sun, those planets revolve on a certain path without them moving any closer or further from the sun, which is like the atoms revolving around the nucleus. They do not move closer or further from the nucleus randomly, which is how I came up with this model.
Your theory explains something about energy levels. Mind advising us on how it correlates with the atom?
Like I said, the electrons are in a fixed path that causes them to revolve around the nucleus without them moving any closer or farther. Their path is a ring surrounding the nucleus. So imagine those rings, some closer to the nucleus and some farther away. The closer the orbit is to the nucleus, the more energy there is. These orbits, or rings as I've been referring them to, I also refer to them as shells. These shells can be labeled by either number or by letter. How I labeled them, starting from the shell closest to the nucleus, I labeled them as the K shell, the L shell, the M shell, and the N shell. For number, I just labeled them 1, 2, 3, and so on, just for the shells. But how I wrote it down, though, was that I write it as N equals 1, N equals 2, N equals 3, and so on. Made it much easier for me to understand.
Awesome, that's great. On behalf of today's scientist, I'd like to say thank you for helping us understand the atom a lot more.
You're very welcome. I managed to help inform and make atomic theory worth all of your time.
How much do you think you've contributed to the scientific community?
Personally, I'm not sure, but I've been hearing that what I've discovered helped science a lot, even if there were some things that I was missing. It was one step closer to figuring out how atoms were built. At least I gave future scientists a head start on that.
The work you've done is amazing, Mr. Bohr. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, I think that's all.
Alright, well thank you for being here today.
My pleasure.